So take time to be a dad today. Learn more at 1-877-4DAD-411 or visit fatherhood.gov.
Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
WOKB, Winter Garden, Orlando.
Welcome to Real Family Talk with your host, Jay Real, where we talk about real issues facing us today. Enjoy the show. Real Family Talk. Hello. Welcome to another week of Real Family Talk. This is your host, Jay Real. Hope everybody's having a great Tuesday night. As always, I tell you this every week, I certainly am. I am definitely having a great Tuesday night. Why? Because it is Real Family Talk. We have such a good time on this show on Tuesday nights. Hope you guys are enjoying it as well. Go ahead and welcome some of the panel here tonight. We got some of my regulars in the building tonight. We got Miss Monica. Miss Monica's here. How you doing, Miss Monica?
Doing great. How you doing, J-Real?
Oh, I'm doing pretty good. Behind the boys over there, we got Jeremy. Jeremy, how you doing tonight?
I'm good. What's going on, everybody?
Oh, and then we got Mr. Micah King is in the building as well. How you doing, Mr. Micah King?
I'm doing great. All right.
All right. All right. Well, let's go ahead and get right into the show. At the top here, what we're going to do is, once again, the Experience Christian Center had their last series of debates for some of the candidates that are going to be running for office this evening. And so I'm going to go ahead and kind of recap some of the things that went down over at the Experience Christian Center, at their community event tonight for the debates. So the first thing that happened was the League of Women Voters came and explained to us all of the amendments that are going to be on the ballot this year. There are 11 of them. I'm not going to take the time to go through them all today, but we will revisit this and we'll do a show. We're going to be doing some political shows to talk about some of the different issues and some of the different candidates that are going to be coming up in these elections. And so we will definitely add this to our agenda where we just discuss some of the amendments that will be on the ballot. Like I said, there are 11 of them. The ladies talked about, of course, in addition, there'll also be candidates there. So altogether, there'll be 4 pages, all front to back of information. So technically 8 pages the ballot would be this year. So a lot of information is going to be on there. So you definitely want to read ahead and kind of prepare yourself so that you don't spend 30 minutes or more in the voting booth there. So the League of Women Voters did that for us. The other thing that happened, again, like I said, they had some debates. Unfortunately, there wasn't much debating going on. The first group they brought up was the Florida Senate candidates, which included Geraldine Thompson, that's running. Victoria Siplin is running, and a gentleman by the name of Fritz Seed. I believe that's how you say his name. And these are all people who are running for Florida Senate District 12. But like I said, wasn't much of a debate because the only candidate that showed up was Geraldine Thompson. She was the only one that came out and to talk to the people tonight. Apparently Fritz Seed agreed to come out, but again, he wasn't there. And Victoria Siplin, according to them, apparently never even responded to the request to attend the evening. So Miss Geraldine Thompson, she was there. She spoke very eloquently. She's been in the Florida House for the past 6 years, and now she's trying to move over to the Florida Senate. And spoke very eloquently about the different issues that she's concerned about within the community. I'll just throw a couple out here that she talked about. Some of the things. She said she was running because she is concerned about the people. She wants to make sure they get jobs within the community. She also wants to look at educational reform and somehow figure out a way where we can, and this, I've heard this platform before from a different candidate as well, where we can maybe reduce the importance of the FCAT, if not take it out altogether. And listening to her, I would almost assume that she'd want to go to something that's more comprehensive, that that might entail and kind of compare to the rest of the country. So those are some of the things that she kind of had on her list of things to do as a candidate, and things that she was concerned about. Another thing she mentioned was the tax policy. She mentioned that the tax policy in Florida was created in the 40s and has not been updated since then. And so one of the things she mentioned was a lax in that policy is as it relates to hotel companies like Expedia and Orbitz. One of the things that they do, that she referred to it as a tax loophole, is those companies will, let's say, a particular hotel will offer a room at $60 a night. Well, one of those companies might buy that room at $60 a night, but when they list it on their website, they list it for $100 a night. And so what happens when someone purchases that room is that company would then pay taxes on the $60. And so, they're getting quote unquote free money, an extra $40 that they did not have to pay Florida tax on. And so, closing tax loopholes like that, she, felt like could help fund some of the lost funds that the governor cut in education. Is an idea she had. Another thing she mentioned was, in order to increase educational funding, is to help reduce the cost of spending on prisons. And so take some of that money that we spend on prisons, especially when we're talking about convicting non-violent criminals, but sending them to jail for an extended period of time. So reducing those types of sentencing will help free up money potentially that could be used on education. So Ms. Geraldine Thompson was there to let us know what her platform was. Like I said, Ms. Victoria Simplin was not there, who is one of her running, someone who she's running against, and Fritz Seed was not there as the other gentleman that is running against her for Florida Senate District 12. So that was the Senate debate that was supposed to happen. So shout out to Miss Geraldine Thompson. We thank you for coming out, talking to the people. I do have a comment though on at least one of the candidates, Miss Siplin. I've been to her website to kind of find out who she was, what she's about, and one of the things that I found disappointing, and I think it's disappointing that she didn't come out tonight as well, is that on the website itself, it doesn't list any of the issues that she seems to be concerned with within the community. So, it seems to me sort of a lack that you don't have any issues on the website that you have to promote yourself. And then here you have an opportunity to discuss issues with people, and you don't show up. I don't know. So that's just my comment on that. The other race that they had out there is for the U.S. House of Representatives, and this is in District 10. And this is a race that Val Demings is a part of. She's running against Daniel Webster, and there is a write-in candidate by the name of Nepal. And I don't want to butcher his last name, but I'll spell it for you. It's Seegolam is how you say his last name. The first name is Nepal, Naipaul. Last name Seegolam. And now Val Demings, she did briefly stop by. She came by, and she did approximately a 2-minute speech. And then apparently she had another engagement, so she left very quickly. Daniel Webster did not show up, and Mr. Nepal, he actually came out and did speak for an extended period of time. On Ms. Val Demings, the only thing that strikes me, I've seen her now on a couple of different occasions, and what strikes me very interesting, and this is just my personal opinion, is she comes across as almost very presidential. In the sense that she always seems to make a show. She's definitely always dressed to the T, and then she comes in very presidential, says what she needs to say, and she steps off very presidential. So that's maybe that's a nod to her classiness. Maybe that's what it is. I don't know, but I'm sure she's going to have a tough fight against Daniel Webster. So if that is the candidate that you like, I'm sure she's going to need all the support she can get. Now, like I said, the other candidate that was there that's running against her, his name is Mr. Nepal. Again, don't want to butcher his last name, Seegolam. Now, this gentleman, I have to give it to him. He showed up tonight in what would be a very hostile crowd this evening for the debates, and he did his best to hold his ground. And he stood up there and took every single question that they threw at him, even in a hostile environment. One of the things that I noticed right away is you can tell by the name he is certainly not a Black American. He is of Indian descent, and he even has the accent to go along with it. So I'm not saying that anybody was negative or biased against him because of that, but certainly the environment in the room was not very welcoming to that. And then he continued to speak, and some of the things that he said, certainly I believe he certainly wasn't speaking to the people, so that was one of the downfalls in his conversation tonight. The other downfall is, of course, in my opinion, he's not Black, so that doesn't really help either. And in addition to that, he was kind of more of a conspiracy conversationalist, which is kind of hard to follow sometimes. He spoke a lot of some mysterious, or he's not mysterious. He says if you go to his website, you can find out who this gentleman is. But some particular donor that is essentially waiting for him to get into office. And once he gets into office, this potential donor is somehow going to cause the release of funds that are somehow going to matriculate down to the people of the country to help save us from our ills, I guess, if you will, foreclosure, the lack of food that some people are experiencing, and all those needs that are of great importance right now in such a down economy. So again, he's there as well. Like I said, he didn't come across very well, and so that was to his downfall because it's hard to buy into these mysterious donors that are only going to support, apparently, if you get into office. It does sound kind of strange. And so, but he was there. Check him out, Naipaul, again, NAIPAULSEEGOLAM. And that pretty much concluded the debate series this week. So again, congratulations to Miss Jasmine Burney, who was able to put all of that together. She's been stopped by the show before, so congratulations to you, Jasmine, and much success in the future. So that was the debates tonight at the Experience Christian Center. All that, of course, sponsored by the pastor over there, Pastor Derek McCrae. So shout out again to the Experience Christian Center. All right, so we'll move on from there. Give us a call tonight, 407-894-1680. 407-894-1680 is the number if you want to join in on any of our conversations here this evening. So we want to jump right into our topic tonight. What we want to do, as everyone knows, this past weekend there was a huge tragedy that took place out in Colorado, where, everybody knows the story. A young man went into a movie theater and randomly started shooting. And, of course, about 12 people died, I think, is the latest count that I heard. And quite a few were either critically injured or caught a stray bullet or two or something to that nature. So, of course, a prayer goes out to all of those families that had to endure that. But with that, of course, comes the usual conversation, which relates to guns and gun laws and whether or not we should have guns and should the gun laws be stricter. And so that's kind of what we want to talk about this evening as it relates to that. What gun laws? Do they need to be stricter? Is there something that can be done as it relates to a gun law that can kind of prevent these types of tragedies? So we want to look at that a little bit. 407-894-1680, 407-894-1680. Before I kind of talk, I want to hear some of what the panel has to say about it. Yeah, you guys have any comments for me?
As far as the gun laws, I definitely think that they need to be much more strict. What oftentimes I've noticed is when they have an incident much like this, often the person that does this crime usually will end up with some plea or some statement of having a mental health disorder. And so I think that in order to kind of close this gap and prevent this issue from happening, that we need to kind of stop it before it can even start, where we can have some type of either psychiatric evaluation for everyone that wants to have a gun, or some form of at least evaluating people, so that, you know, everybody that just takes a course doesn't just get a gun. I mean, and making it a little bit more stringent, so that you really have to work at getting a gun legally, instead of just, oh, we'll take the course and do this and get your fingerprints and then you're fine. And I know they've mentioned something much like that with the Virginia Tech incident, so I don't know where that if much has transpired since then. But I definitely think that needs to be done, and there needs to be more stringent rules towards gun possession.
So you want to say something? Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah, I agree. I think they need to kind of go into doing psychological testing because, you know, right now you pretty much anybody can get a gun. It's just about, well, depending on what state you're in, you know, taking a course, you know, paying a fee, that good stuff. But I think they might need to go into doing like psychological profiles, because, you know, in a lot of states, you know, you really don't even have to register to get rifles. You know, anybody can just go to Walmart and get a rifle. You know, it's not even a big deal.
Right.
You know, especially when you getting into Middle America and Texas and places like that, where, you know, they do a lot of hunting and things like that. So I just think they need to do it like psychological testing or something.
Well, let me ask you this. Of course, a lot of the advocates, what they say is, you know, including, you know, something like psychological testing, you know, what about Second Amendment rights, the right to bear arms? I mean, how is that affected? Why do I need to have a psychological test to own a gun when it's my right as a U.S. citizen to own that gun? What do you say to those people?
But it's not your right to eventually use that gun in a crime. So, yes, you do have the right, and you have the right to take the examination, and you have the right to allow for
to pass
that
examination.
So I don't really see that they have, you know, anything to stand on. If you are concerned about your evaluation, then maybe you need to seek some treatment so that you can later pass the evaluation.
I know that's right.
So I think that's a little silly. I'm
like, I ain't just say nobody couldn't have a gun. We just want you to be a little sane, you know. Maybe you don't need no 100 on the test, but you at least give me an 85.
Right, you need to at least show
give me
that
a
you
C
don't
minus
have
or something.
Right, some
Can I get a C
homicidal
minus?
tendencies that C minus.
But that's a problem. I mean, how can? First of all, if it's a test, then that means that it can be passed, right? It's like a lie detector test, right?
Correct.
They say if the lie detector test exists, there's a man out there who can beat the lie detector test. So if there's some mental test that you have to take in order to own a gun, it's certainly feasible that someone can pass this test, but yet at some later point in life, you know, essentially, because what we're talking about here with this young man is, first of all, this young man was actually very intelligent, right?
Right.
So we understand that he was a MD, PhD candidate. So he was, in terms of his ability, in terms of his intelligence, he was certainly tops within, you know, that type of group of people. He certainly had all the information necessary to be successful. And then, of course, you know, obviously he went astray. But, you know, is it the gun that caused him to do that to these people, or was it him that somehow lost his mind and did that to these people? So if it's him, then why am I, who clearly have no intentions on doing that, why am I also taking a mental exam that, again, it can be passed, and, you know, I could pass it today, lose my mind on Friday, and then go out and kill a bunch of people. So the test didn't do anything. So that the test is just some extra thing, some extra fee perhaps that the gun owner or potential gun owner has to pay, or maybe the state pays it. I don't know who pays some, you know, random fee for mental testing here. When at the end of the day, it's not the gun that's the problem. It's the individual who owns that gun that made a bad choice, a bad decision to go out and use that gun against all these people.
Well, I think the idea when you say test, a lot of people are thinking, oh, this is kind of like a multiple choice, almost like an FCAT type of situation. This is not really. This is an evaluation that gives, and there are personality evaluations that many people of high intellect are not able to necessarily quote unquote pass. That it actually looks at your behaviors, your way of thinking, and there's over 500 questions, so you're not necessarily going to be able to remember what you answered for question number 1. It double checks and makes sure that your answers are consistent throughout the entire exam. That you aren't flipping back and forth trying to answer.
500 question test.
Well, that's an example of one type of personality exam.
I was just saying because that's the same test Walmart do, but you kind of start picking up like, why am I answering the same question 4 times reworded? And that's what they do. And it's about 70, 75 questions, somewhere between 75 and 100 questions. Right. Like you said, that's probably why they do that.
Right.
They just keep rewording the question.
They look for validity and reliability. And oftentimes, these have been highly researched. This is not something that somebody picked up in an easy 10 question, quote unquote test that, so anybody can just pass. These things have been created so that it is not easy for someone to just get 100 in the happy scale. It's not like that. So, do I think that yes, I do agree that it should be mandatory. It should be, if you are someone who has a reasoning behind why you're wanting to get this test, then you should be able to supply the information and proceed with all the procedures necessary to get what you're obtaining. And if you want to go hunting, fine, take the exam, okay. And if you lose your mind tomorrow, then you can't go through every loophole. I mean, we can't have a rule for every single situation. But let's say you make it an annual thing. Let's say the last 6 months, things have been going down. You've been going through a depressive state. Now you want to go and harm someone. Well, if it's about that time for you to take your evaluation, they're going to pick that up. And then maybe at that point, some other law will be put in place that you will get your license revoked until you can go seek treatment to get that addressed. But we have to do something. We can't just give somebody a license and say, well, here, at any point, you can use this gun because we've given you a license and you never have to come back again. That's almost, we might as well just not even have a law if that's the case, because we're just giving them free reign to do whatever they want to do after they pass it.
Well, first of all, to get a gun, you just don't walk. Well, yes, you can walk into Walmart and buy certain guns. Mm-hmm. This is true. But to own handguns and assault rifles and some of these things, there is some background checks and things that need to occur in order for you to get these guns. So nobody's just, willy-nilly just walking in and buying random guns here. So, again, there are things in place, but here my fear here is, it's kind of like jumping to conclusions, right? So it's like some of the suggestions that you're making. So you take this test, and you have to pass this test in order to be able to own a gun, to kind of talk about, find out where your mental status is. And then the next suggestion relates to, okay, so maybe one test, or taking the test one time because you could pass it this year, right? Lose your mind next year. So now you're saying, so you have to now take this test every year in order to maintain your license. It seems to me, because again, the sole argument, or the biggest argument that they make, is the Second Amendment. So the Second Amendment doesn't say that I can get a gun because, I passed the test. It's a mental status test every year. The Second Amendment says I can get a gun because I live in the United States of America. Mm-hmm. And so if that's what the law says, which, it's the Constitution, right? So it outrules all this other stuff, if you will, in terms of your right to be able to own one. Why am I jumping through 1,000 hoops in order to be able to simply exercise my right as a U.S. citizen? Okay, because at the end of the day, again, what we're talking about here, people just aren't randomly always going out and jumping out and shooting people. This is not an everyday occurrence. This is an isolated incident that occurred here.
But it happens pretty, I mean, not frequently, but we have at least 1 or 2 incidents a year where someone says, okay, I'm just going to pop off today and go shoot somebody.
I see we have a caller. How you doing, caller? Renee, is it, right?
Yes, it's Sister Renee. How are you?
I'm doing all right. How are you doing? What's your comment tonight?
Thank you. My comment to the panel is there's some people out there, they're excellent test takers. I mean, they can even pass a lie detector test while they're lying. And they're strategic. You know, these people are very calculated. And sometimes it's hard to detect if they're sane or insane. And so my comment is why we can't put something in place where if they're ordering M16s and, you know, heavy-duty, high-powered rifles in a great amount of quantity and explosives, whether it's online, whether it's at a store, how come we can't put something in that would, like, alert the FBI, alert, you know what I mean, Secret Service, alert the NRA, so that way, you know, these people would be, if anything should happen, they could just find them real quickly, target them, you know what I mean, and apprehend them even before they do something. Kind of like trigger the police. It's like, why are these people ordering this amount of quantity?
Right.
They have like 300 guns they're ordering that day, 40 explosives that one particular day. It should send an alert all over the internet. Something is wrong.
Right.
I mean, we're not in a war every single day. We're not in a war on this particular day. So why are they ordering X amount of, you know what I mean?
Right.
X amount of weapon, X amount of explosives, X amount of whatever. I mean, they have a plan.
Correct.
Obviously. So how come we can't, you know, do something about it as to alert the FBI, alert Secret Service, alert police or something so that they can, you know, at least ask these people, you know, like, why are you doing this? You know, why do you need X amount of quantities? Let me take a look at your house. What's going on here?
Okay. All right. And thank you for that comment, Renee. Now, if I'm not mistaken, I believe they do have some of those kinds of triggers in place where a computer is kind of monitoring the activity of different materials, not only just explosive materials, but even chemicals, if I'm not mistaken. But I believe, if I remember reading correctly, this gentleman, he actually didn't order like all of this stuff at one particular time. He sort of ordered it over a extended time period. So he got a little bit here, he got a little bit there, he got a little bit here and a little bit there. So that he wasn't just ordering mass quantities of materials to store at his house. He was kind of doing it in sections, which goes to his planning. Which again, we're talking about someone who is a MD, PhD candidate. So we're talking about someone who is very intelligent and has the wherewithal, as far as intelligence is concerned, to be able to really put together an attack plan to manipulate however he felt like the situation should go down. Clearly, you know, and this doesn't necessarily lead to his success, but it certainly leads to the proper planning that he put into it, which is clear that he had a lot of planning, even down to, you know, the explosives that he had booby-trapped at his home. So, I mean, he was clearly had to put some thought into this. As crazy as he was, he certainly put thought into this, which kind of goes back to, you know, my point. So you're right. We do have very few. You made the comment before Renee commented there. We do have very few of these incidents a year, which is why it begs the question. So do we create even more stringent gun laws because every year we know that there's going to be, you know, 5 or 10 crazy people that do something that 9 times out of 10, 99% of the time is not going to happen. You know, that becomes the question. So we're going to create even these more stringent gun laws so that 0.5% of the people who own a gun, if not even, you know, are going to commit some kind of crazy crime one day, but we're going to punish, if you will, all of the law-abiding citizens who own guns because we know that 0.5% of the people who own one are going to maybe one day do something crazy. You know what I'm saying? That becomes the question. Is that what we're suggesting? So it's sort of like, go ahead.
I see what you're saying, J-Real. I think that it would even decrease to some degree just crime in general with a weapon. Because some people are just not going to want to go through all of that, so they're just not going to get a gun. They'll find.
No, they're still gonna get.
Well, they may find one. Like it's. I mean, there's always
you want
all
a
these
gun,
other options.
you're gonna get a gun.
Okay, well, I mean, and that's happening now. You know, so who's to say, even if we say that this very intelligent individual, let's say we put in every law possible, he could still find a way to get a gun.
Exactly,
You
which
know,
is
so-
why, which is the point that gun owners and those that support, you know, keeping the gun laws where they are, that's their point. You know, when you look at it like this particular individual, if he didn't have a gun, the man had his whole apartment booby trapped to the
Right.
point
That was
where
crazy.
it took a bomb squad like several hours to go through his apartment and to take all of those devices and what's the word I'm looking for? Deactivate. Thank you. Deactivate those devices. Okay, so clearly this man, even if he didn't have those 3 guns that he had, he had a way, or he would have figured out a way to go in there and take out these people. Why? Because he was just crazy. You know what I'm saying? The man went into the jailhouse acting as if he was the Joker. They had some of the inmates that got released a few days after he went in that talked about, you know, I don't know if you remember that scene from The Dark Knight, you know, when the Joker gets arrested and he's going into the jail and spitting on people. You know, this is what this man was doing as he got arrested and is walking into the jail. He's spitting on the guards, spitting everywhere.
Yeah.
So this man, he didn't have there wasn't a rational thought to this man in terms of what he had planned. This man was just crazy. So
I
do
think
we
he was
change
playing
all of the
crazy,
gun
honestly.
laws? Okay.
I think that, I mean, he's a neurologist, so he knows brain behavior.
So he
you know,
played
he knows
crazy.
let's just say, you know, yes, he played crazy. He knows what to do he was giving a psychotic episode. He is playing it like he can play it. He knows how to play it because he knows what someone who is going through a psychotic episode will behave. He showed catatonia, he showed delusional behavior, he showed erratic behavior. He knew what he had to do, and people that are not very familiar with that are going to say, "Oh, he's crazy." That's what he wants you to think. He's crazy, so that he can go to a psychiatric hospital and go do something over there because he's fine. He's just playing the role because he wants to do what he wants to do. He doesn't want to really be in jail. So I think this guy, right, exactly. So he can just take some medication, and he knows what the medication is going to do. He knows which medication he should tell them to take, you know, to show what symptoms. He knows what they're going to choose. This particular individual is, you know, he's an extenuating circumstance because he's a neurologist. But just a normal, you know, average person is not going to, you know, oh, these are the symptoms that I need to display, you know, in order to show and prove that I have schizophrenia or I have a brief psychotic episode. But he knows. And I think a lot of people are, you know, missing that point that, oh, you know, he's just real crazy. No, he had enough sense to put those, like you said, those booby traps together so that it didn't blow him up while he was putting them together in there. He had enough sense to know how to get into the theater, and he had enough sense to buy whatever. I guess he bought a ticket to get in, so he wasn't having that psychotic episode then. He got in, he got to the right theater that he was looking for, and it just so happened to be the Batman theater. So he wasn't having a psychotic episode then, but all of a sudden now, because he's spitting and acting a fool, he's crazy now because he got into jail. No, he's not crazy.
Well, first of all,
break it down, Monica. Break it down.
Miss Monica has broken it down for us as to why he's not crazy. 407-894-1680. 407-894-1680. Well, here's what I mean. One, I think he is crazy. Okay, why? Because if we believe what the reports, he believes that he is acting out the part of the Joker. So he's delusional in the sense that he really thinks he's a comic book character. Okay, he's crazy. He went and went through his apartment and booby trapped his entire apartment. He's crazy. He went into a movie theater. He planned, like I said, he plotted. He did buy a ticket to Batman. That was the only thing planned. It was a midnight showing of Batman. That was the only thing planned anyway. So he knew what he was doing. He went to the Batman movie.
It was midnight,
like you
so
said, as far as how the situation went down, he bought a ticket. He was sitting in the theater for watching a few of the previews even, exited the theater through the emergency door and then put on his gear or whatever he had on and then came back in.
And still psychotic doing all of that.
acted out his particular act there. So the question to me is he crazy? Yes, he's crazy because of the things that he did. Now, does that mean there isn't some conscious thought into his craziness? Of course there is. But when you think about the character that he apparently is mimicking, does that mean that he now should not have to suffer the consequence of his actions? I don't think it does. I think he needs to take every bit of those consequences, which in Colorado, the worst it can be is the death penalty, although apparently they're not a big fan of using it, but that's the worst it can be. But at the very least, he'll probably get some kind of life sentences. So I don't think that he's going to get off, by using some kind of mental breakdown defense. But is he crazy? I think he is. I think you do have to be partially delusional in order to put together, in order to pretend for yourself and the world that you're the Joker, and then act out the way that you did. No sane individual does those kinds of actions.
That wants to go to jail.
I would say this. I agree. He probably is a little crazy, but to me, he ain't crazy enough to get the chair. You know what I'm saying? Better yet, I say put him in a movie theater and put the firing squad on him, see how he like that. That'd be good for him. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I agree
I'm sorry.
with
This is a
that.
Christian state. We shouldn't say
I think
that.
I'm
sorry.
We get the firing squad.
We don't condone. We don't. I really don't necessarily condone death penalty anyway. But
They don't do that in the U.S.
yeah.
They
They actually about.
You got to go to the Middle East for stuff like that.
Bring that back, because if you do,
You know what, though?
if you're gonna do that in the movie theater, you need to have a firing squad at you personally.
It actually might be a few states that are still on the books, but they might not just use it.
That's certainly possible, but
Yeah,
they don't do that.
Right? Yeah.
You got to go to the Middle East for that. You got to go to
But,
the Middle East. They will certainly have no problem doing that in the Middle East. But
I wish you
I
would
think-
come to jail with me, acting like the joke. I got something funny for you.
Yeah, I think
ha.
I think it is
Spitting
what he
too?
did evil is what he did, very calculated and very conniving, and something that, the enemy would do. Absolutely. But do I think necessarily that he was in a incapacitated state, that he was not able to control his ability to make very good judgments? No, I don't. Not according to the Diagnostic Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. I don't. I'm sorry.
Which supports the idea of why we don't need to somehow rush to judgment and change gun laws simply because of, one or two incidents. Actually, I think I read that we have approximately 20 of these types of kind of random, wild and crazy shootings every year on average. So again, approximately 20 people per year lose their minds, which is probably less than 0.5% of the people that owns guns. So do we need to go in and change, thousands of gun laws, because every state has their own little law, just to accommodate the 0.5% of people who are going to lose their mind one day and not properly use their firearm? I think that is unnecessary and just out of control for anybody to suggest that. It's kind of like using kind of sort of how we did with well, I won't go there, but it's using something that has nothing to do with the situation at hand, which is a crazy man shooting a bunch of people, doesn't somehow now translate to gun laws are not effective. Because clearly they are, because 99.5% of the people that have them use them responsibly. So it's not guns aren't the problem. It's people are the problem.
Definitely is the people.
It's the people that are the
Right.
problem, because
Right.
a gun can't kill anybody by itself. It needs a person behind it to pull the trigger. So if you change the attitude of people, you'll see gun violence go down. But it's not going to be because you created a law now that is somehow making you take a mental examination every year in order to own a gun. That to me, that just seems out of control. Seems like
do
too
it at
much.
least every 5 years.
Too much
And I'm not
government
saying it's
intervention.
I'm not saying it's the only solution. It is an option. We're all just talking here. But something needs to be done. Something needs to be done. We can't just sit back and let people use their mental capacity as an escape route for
Hold on, wait,
their.
he hasn't even,
That's what they do.
He
Saying
hasn't
he
even
went to
filed
trial
the defense yet. Man, he hasn't even
He's
pleaded
pretending
yet.
to be the Joker. Come on now.
He hasn't even pleaded yet.
Oh, so he's never gonna use that.
I don't know what he's gonna use. I'm just saying, Miss Monica.
Well,
let's give a man time.
Let's just say in the past that they have used that as their reasoning of why they acted in this behavior, and that is not an excuse.
Well, we'll see. We'll see what happens in this particular case. But I still don't think that leads to needing more stringent laws, and somehow there's a law that you can pass that's going to prevent someone from randomly shooting a bunch of different people. I don't think there's a law that you can pass to support that particular act. I think the only thing you can do is pray that people use the guns that they purchase responsibly. And like I said, 99.5999% of the people that own them, they do just that. And so since most of the people are doing that, you shouldn't just change the laws because of the few that are going to abuse the current law. Because at the end of the day, as they say, guns don't kill people.
People kill.
People kill people. Is that right?
People pulling triggers kill people.
Exactly. So go ahead.
But I would say, as relation to Renee's comment about, a system in place watching people, like you were saying, the system is placed, but like you said, the problem is they just watching the wrong people. They worried about Akbar right now. They ain't worried about Tom.
Right.
The doctorate candidate.
Right.
With 38 Ks. We going on a serious hunting trip. Ain't nobody worried about that.
It was somebody who was talking about we need bullet control. I really believe. I know who it was, but I really believe that may be true. I mean, if you really raise the prices of bullets, that will stop people from random shootings and just. If you see somebody with a bunch of guns, but they say bullets are $1,000, a bullet or something to that nature. You know what I'm saying? They got a bunch of guns, they will not have a bunch of bullets. I guarantee you that.
Now let me say this.
That was very funny, by the way.
That would I would say this. That would probably curb a lot of inner city violence. But to the person who wants to go shoot up a theater, he'll take out a loan to get them bullets because he figure he ain't gonna have to worry about paying back anyway. Right. He go take out a loan, say he buying a car, and go stockpile, or whatever. He ain't gonna have to worry about paying that loan back anyway. He know that whether he kill himself or he go to jail the rest of his life. So.
Right. 407-894-1680 is the number. 407-894-1680. But like I said, when it comes to that particular idea, that was an extremely hilarious line when Chris Rock said it in one of those stand-up specials. I can't remember exactly the name of which one, but of course that is just very unrealistic as well.
Yeah, it's too much money to be made off bullets.
It's too much money to be made off bullets. Exactly.
Charging
$1,000 a bullet.
That's the way you should do it, though. I mean, you can get all the guns that you want, but you will not be able to get all the bullets that you want to just go rob. It's like, if I'm going to get a gun, and I'm going to go to a convenience store and rob this convenience store and only get at the maximum of $500, you only going to have one bullet in that gun, okay? Now, seriously, though. Like, that's just some real talk.
Again, that's
very
hilarious.
It is funny, but if you the cashier on the end of that, you don't want to bet that he ain't with the risk that $1,000.
You don't want to be like, you don't have enough money for a bullet.
You got enough money to shoot that. Pow! Now he just $500 in the hole.
$500 in the hole.
Now the next convenience store he hit, they ain't gonna know he got a bullet in there. They just gonna be looking at a gun.
Very hilarious.
He gonna rob that to go get his other bullet.
It was hilarious, but it is not realistic.
Can you imagine somebody going robbing people to pay for bullets?
In America, somebody would.
I want to hear from these Christian license gun owners. What do y'all think? We know you out there. You ain't gotta. Some of y'all purses are a little too heavy. It ain't just a Bible in there.
Oh man, speaking of guns, of course, at the end of last week, another big event kind of happened. A lot of people, I'm sure, were watching this. George Zimmerman gave his first public interview to Sean Hannity on last Wednesday night. So that was pretty interesting. I was kind of going to throw that out for the panel. Speaking of proper gun ownership, so you guys, tell me what you guys think about that interview.
Hold on, this is my favorite quote from the interview. I really didn't have time to think about it, But when I was sitting in the jail, I was
I had a
thinking
lot of
about
time
it.
to
I was
think
thinking
about
about it. That was the funniest part to me.
Oh my gosh!
I was like, you just said you didn't have time to think about it. Then you turned around and said while you were sitting in jail, you were thinking about it.
Right. By watching it, it almost make you think that the lawyer really wants.
That's what I'm saying. If I was the lawyer, I'd be like, that's it right there. Cut it. We done.
Like
these 5 minutes is up. We done. Once he said that, it's not gonna get no better.
The case is almost a wrap at this point. Like, he didn't put himself in jail. Like, it's just.
Well, let me ask you this. Now, you say he didn't put himself in jail. 407-894-1680. Now, what did you feel like he said that put himself in jail?
His mannerisms, his, retracting of his own statements, his saying that, I told the operator he was running. But no, he wasn't running. He was skipping.
He was kind of skipping.
I'm going to charge after somebody who's kind of skipping.
Because he was like skipping.
But then I get at the car and his body language, he was, fiddling with his hands like, let me not say something wrong.
Well, of course
let me not lie the wrong way. Like, and then it just looked like he was really trying hard to keep his statements the same, but it was showing that it was all over the place.
Well, let me just say this. It seemed like he trying to set his defense up just in case he found guilty that he didn't have proper representation. Because ain't no way in the world I would let that man get up there and talk that long after them first 5 minutes. It would have been over after that because we done.
It was.
You can't even complete a sentence. So you won't even sound credible.
Well, you know what? Obviously, everything I'm sure that they did was pre-approved.
Yeah,
I'm sure it was
thought out,
almost scripted, into the sense that I'm sure they had a pretty good idea of what questions were going to be asked.
You should have practiced the answers.
And at some point, of course, because we saw the edited version,
right.
So it's very well that
it was worse. That's the bad part.
That the lawyer probably kind of stepped in and maybe shut down a few of the questions. Even in the edited version, there was a couple questions that he refused to let his client answer.
Right.
But I would say this: guilty or innocent. I don't know. Well, let me rephrase that. Guilty, yes. Of what, I don't know. Right. So from that perspective, one, I think he took a huge risk, him and his lawyer, doing an interview, prior to having his day in court. That's number one. I guess maybe the benefit is, truth be told, he's not going to really have his day in court for probably another year. So by the time that year passes, a lot of people have forgotten what he said in that interview anyway. But although I'm sure there'll be plenty of pundits that will be glad to remind us all.
I'm sure they're going to keep reposting. Right.
But so did he do damage? I say I don't think he did any damage, because I think one of the things when you watch it, one of the things that he allowed to happen is he essentially allowed Sean Hannity to lead him into the answers that he wanted to respond to, and lead him into the answers that he thought would be more favorable to him. Truth or not, I don't know. I don't know what the truth is about that night, but certainly everything about the interview was very leading to provide the best opportunity for George Zimmerman to show himself in good light. Yeah, like you said, it did come off kind of fake, but I don't think you can expect much more from a scripted interview. It's kind of hard to be sincere when the spotlight's on you and you're scared at every moment, at every question, to make sure you don't want to do to say the right thing. So it was interesting for sure. Did it help his case? I think for those that like him, sure, I think it helped his case for those people. For the people that don't like him and think he is a murderer, that is a murderer waiting to go to jail. I think
the one that was shimmying to the grass.
I think he only added fuel to the fire, to his crucifixion, if you will, that those people want to place upon him. But he did do the interview the other day, Mr. George Zimmerman. 407-894-1680 if you want to make a comment about it. One last news topic that was huge this week as well. Of course, as of Sunday, they removed the long time statue of Coach Joe Paterno down there at Penn State.
Yes, they did.
That was Sunday. And then on Monday, the NCAA fined the school an unprecedented amount, $60 million they fined that school on Monday, in addition to ultimately taking away 20 scholarships from the school. They're going to take, I think it's 10 in the first year, another 10 in the second, and then like 20 for years 3 and 4. In addition to that, they took away, put them on a 4-year bowl ban. So for 4 years, Penn State the football team cannot go to any bowls. And then in addition to that, they took every single win away from Coach Joe Paterno as of 1998. So he lost approximately 112 wins that have now just been removed from his record altogether. And then in addition to that, they took the step, since the school is getting fined so harshly, they took the step to say to the students there, for any student athlete on the football team that wants to transfer to any school in the country, feel free, and your eligibility is not going to be withheld. Meaning you can transfer to FSU, let's say, for instance, and if the FSU coach decided you're the best candidate to start on his team, feel free to start on his team, even though you just got there within the next couple of weeks. So huge fines levied on the school. First question, what do you think? Do you think the NCAA should be levying fines towards conduct on a school towards conduct that did not involve students? Because ultimately they're supposed to monitor the activity of students and the school. So this right here had nothing to do with students. This was the action of employees of a school who have, one, they've already been fired from the school. 2, some of them are, facing legal challenges already. Some have already gotten their legal challenges. Some will be getting some in the future. So do they have the right to step in and punish the school this harshly for something that students didn't do, had nothing to do with students, employees of an institution?
Well, I would say this. One, they didn't have any kind of guideline to go by. Obviously, with the harshness of the crime, when him being a serial pedophile, they kind of just wanted to hammer down. Now, I guess it could be a question of who should have gave out the punishment. A lot of people say, okay, the NCAA doesn't have the right to do it because they are there to monitor competitive advantage on the field in sports, not to punish institutions for bad institutional behavior. A lot of people say, well, the state of Pennsylvania should have handed down a punishment, or the Board of Regents, or even possibly the Big Ten Conference itself. But regardless of who did it, it needed to be done. And I honestly think their pockets needed to be hit bad, because at the end of the day, that's why it wasn't getting reported. They were protecting the football program, the image, because they knew it was going to hurt them monetarily. So whatever the punishment was, it was going to have to affect the bottom line. That's the only way you could have handed down any kind of effective punishment. That whole group is out. They're gone. Obviously Coach Paterno's dead. The president, all those guys have been fired and probably going to be facing criminal charges. But the state itself still, I feel, need to be affected monetarily, as well as, well, I don't know. I'm kind of up in there about, the bowl bans and all that stuff with the school. But I guess that's a part of being affected monetarily, because the bowl games bring in a lot of money, and, conference championships and national championships bring in a lot of money, so they can't compete for those as well. So, at the end of the day, somebody had to do it.
Well, here's my thing. At the end of the day, these punishments don't affect anybody that was actually responsible for the acts that everyone found so egregious. So the only people being hurt by this are students that weren't even a part of the school when the alleged transgressions went down. That's number one. The school that's being affected, essentially taking $60 million away from a school, which, in their particular case, I believe they said that number is approximately the annual gross of their football program.
Yeah.
So that's how they came up with the number. But $60 million, I don't care who you are, you miss $60 million.
Yeah, they do. They're actually going to spread it out for 5 years, so it's going to be 12 each year.
Okay. Well, even still, you're still going to miss $60 million. That's a lot of money, especially when you're talking about schools.
That's the point.
And so again, who's being affected? The people being affected are people who had nothing to do with the situation. There's nothing that anyone there at that school currently could have done differently to change this particular situation. And so as such, it seems to me an outrage, if you will, to punish these people, an outrage.
No,
to punish these people
you're
with
punishing the university.
With such sanctions. I think it's an outrage.
But you're not punishing the people. You're punishing the university. Obviously, people go to the university. That's why they have the right to transfer and leave. A lot of them will still be able to go to another school and they can play immediately. But if that doesn't work out, guess what? They can use a red shirt, not play, sit at that school for a year, get acclimated to the program, and then be ready to play next year. So, at the end of the day, what? So tough. At the end, you got to hit the school, man. The school,
they covered up. Be hit. The school is going to be hit. The school
covered up. They covered up for a pedophile to save face and to keep the money coming in. So how else can you punish somebody for that but hit them in the pockets?
But again, they will be hit in the pockets because I'm sure there will more than likely be civil lawsuits against the school. So the school is going to hit them monetarily.
Hit them some more.
But the NCAA as an institution is not there to punish the behavior of administration within a school. And so for them to step in and essentially fine this school for probably what amounts to a couple $100 million over the course of how long this ban is going to be in place, for them to step in and basically rip that school of a couple $100 million, when their job is not even to punish schools for the transgressions that administration officials do. That's not their job. That's not why they were created. To me, is an outrage because if you do this here, then what are you going to do next? Because now you set a precedent that if your administration officials do something, we now can have the ability to fine you or whatever the case we deem necessary.
And that's
unprecedented. It's
not necessarily, because at the end of the day, remember the punishment only went down like this because the school signed off on it. The school could have fought this, but they chose not to.
Yeah, because they're basically their backs are forced into a wall.
Exactly,
because of the quote unquote more outrage, but that doesn't make it right.
I didn't say it does, but if they said, okay, we'll take it, it is what it is. Now, like they had the right, they could have challenged this. They could have did through the whole appeals process, and that failed. They could have went to court and just like you said, went through the thing. Well, this is not your job, and eventually, you know what? They probably would have won. But when that happened, the punishment would have came. Some kind of punishment would have came from the state, or came from the Board of Regents, or came from the Big Ten Conference. The punishment was coming from somewhere. The NCAA was the first to jump. It was coming from somewhere, and to me,
I don't necessarily know that it was coming
I'll tell you like this.
This is like I said, this is a couple $100 million,
and it should be a couple.
Think about
it like this. Think about it like this.
And then hold on, and then the coach here, essentially, we've now essentially torn his name and put his face or his grave into the mud without even he having the ability to speak up on his own behalf. And to me, that's even more of an outrage.
Okay.
Why? Because, hold on, and I see we're closing out here, but I think it's an outrage because, number one, everyone has a skeleton. Everybody. Mm-hmm. Okay? Your skeleton isn't my skeleton and vice versa. Okay? Mm-hmm. But everybody got a skeleton. And so if you look at the body of work over the 70-some odd years that he was alive, he's certainly done a whole lot more good than this one particular transgression.
Hopefully.
There's thousands of men that can attest for that.
There's a handful of little boys that would disagree with you.
My point is, if one transgression is all you need to destroy somebody, well then what is a lifetime? I think about, judgment. It's not ours to judge. Because like I said, everybody has their skeleton. And so sure, could you? Obviously, this was a flaw in his character, but is this enough to take his name and now run it through the mud?
Hey, I'm not talking about.
Which is essentially the punishment that has been handed down to remove everything he's done.
No,
to,
they're not
to take
removing
away
everything he's done.
Yes, they have.
They took away.
They've taken every.
They took
aspect
all the
of his
wins.
life
They
out
took
of
all
that
the
school.
wins away from the time that they knew he first knew about it, and didn't say anything or didn't need to follow through as much as they feel he should have. They took all those wins away from there until now. You know, to me, I don't see a problem with that. Like I said, if he would have, like I said, okay, they say he did tell his boss. The boss didn't. You saw the boss didn't do nothing. So my thing is like this. Okay, we all people. Let's say you at your job, you catch somebody at your job molesting a child, and you say, oh, you scared, you don't know what to do. You tell your boss. Your boss don't do it. Oh, well, you think, okay, I'm good. I told my boss. My boss go do something. But at the time go on, you see your boss ain't did nothing. Aren't y'all gonna go to the police or somebody, or at least go try to find this child's parents or something? I know I'm not gonna sit up and work with this guy every day.
Everybody's different, bro.
Okay, you're right. Everybody's different.
Everybody's different.
I'm just saying.
So everybody is not going to in that situation.
Okay, well, you know what?
Do the right thing.
You're right.
So,
well, then then that person need to go to jail too. That's all I'm trying to say. You need to go to jail too.
If something were to happen at a local amusement park,
you talking about kids here, man? You ain't talking about grown folks. You talking about kids.
Period.
You talking about kids. And that's my whole thing. I just don't see. And see, I don't know. I got kids. I know a lot of other guys feel like this. I'm not going to work next to somebody every day who I know mess with kids, man. I can't even sit next to you.
And that's fine. That's your opinion. I probably wouldn't do. I'm sure I would do the same. But that doesn't change the fact that there's someone out there who will.
Yeah,
number
it
one.
is.
And again, I think you have to look at the lifetime of a person.
You do. Now hold on. Now let me say this too. I don't necessarily agree that they're trying to make him the face of it.
They are trying to make.
I understand that, but I don't agree with that part of it. I don't agree with that.
They have.
I don't have a problem with them taking the wins away. The statue thing, to me, that's up to the school. They do what they want to do. That's their stuff. But I don't see the big problem with at least putting a little blame, some onus on him. You know what I'm saying? Like, you knew, and you continue not to do anything. But he, like I said, he's not the only one. The problem is too, like I said, they just keep mentioning him. But he had 2 or 3 bosses that they should be mentioning their name every time they mention his name, which they're not doing. Now that's just
because again, he's the face.
He doesn't make the name. That's the name. Yeah, he has the name.
He's the one that's being run into the ground.
Right.
So again, I think that is wrong. I think that he deserves better, and I think that certainly you can acknowledge his presence, but to run his name in the mud, I think is a mistake. Thank you for joining us. Find us on Facebook, Real Family Talk, Twitter, Real Family Talk, realfamilytalk.weebly.com. We appreciate you for joining us this evening, and we will see you again. This is your host, Jay Real.
Say the kids, y'all.
WOKB, Winter Garden, Orlando.
Made my life worth living.